Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Heliostar Metals, chatting with Charles Funk. Charles is the president and CEO of Heliostar. The company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol HSTR, on the OTCQX under the symbol HSTXF, and the Frankfurt Exchange RGG1. Now, I chatted with Charles at the tail end of last month, February, to talk about the Q4 financial results and the 2025 guidance now that the company is a gold producer and looking to ramp up that gold production. If you want that full update, listen to that interview, please. This interview, we're talking about the most recent news releases, which announced financing. All share financing initially announced for $12 million, upsized to $17 million. Charles, I had some questions come in on the back of that news, simply asking, look, our last interview, you had outlined how the company is cash flowing now. You paid off debt early. So people are wondering, why do the financing now? How did it come together?
Yeah, thanks for having me. The short answer is to go faster, to bring value forward, which we think will improve our share price. We've been offered money pretty consistently throughout this year. It's amazing how quickly the wheel turns from how hard it was to raise money over the couple of years before that. But I wanted our team to demonstrate that we were making money from these assets. We're doing well. You saw that quarterly, and we're 10 days away, if all goes well, from another strong quarterly. We didn't need to raise capital to operate our business, but I'd always reserve the right to raise capital to either advance production or to grow the resource base. And when we get to discuss use of proceeds, it clearly allows us to do more things quickly, which I think will ultimately increase our share price.
Okay, let's talk about the use of proceeds then, either on the growth in terms of operations or exploration. What comes first, or does it all come at the same time?
Yeah, I think this gives us flexibility on a couple of fronts. So, we had about $2 million US cash on the balance sheet when we closed the transaction in November. We grew that to about 5.5 at the end of last year. Before this financing, we were sitting on about 10 million. So we've been strengthening the balance sheet, and that was something that was important to us. It was an easier sort of to target weak point of the company. And so we had a path where we could demonstrate discipline and a stronger balance sheet, or we could keep pushing ahead on our assets, particularly Ana Paula. This, given the strength of the financing terms, allows us to do both. We immediately strengthen the balance sheet. We will be aggressive with a drill program now at Ana Paula. I've asked the guys to work on a 2 drill rig program, like to get started in April. We don't like to muck around. So push harder and show the potential and convert more of the inferred to measured and indicated at Ana Paula. And lastly, it gives us the capital to expand San Augustine when we get the permit that we're expecting around the middle of the year. So it funds production increases, it accelerates drilling at Ana Paula, and it strengthens our balance sheet. And that's the reason we took the capital.
So I should ask then, before this financing, prior to it, how much money did the company have in the bank, just so we can get an idea of just what you're working with capital-wise here once it closes?
Yeah, approximately 10 million US before the financing.
Okay, so let's talk again, operation wise. Fine, you're waiting for that permit, and then you can move forward with the other asset being built. Exploration, you want to start a 2 drill rig program. What does that mean for news flow then? What should we expect? How does that, I guess, shorten the timeline for news?
Yeah, ultimately, I've sort of talked about, we've got these sort of scrappy assets that were, producing gold from the leach pads and care and maintenance. This year, we're moving to sustainable production, and then ultimately we move to quality, better assets like Ana Paula in terms of margin and total ounces produced per year. So we've been moving more slowly than we would have fundamentally liked at Ana Paula, because we were using just the profits of our operation to do that. This financing, no warrant at 70% above the last financing, considerably de-risks Ana Paula, as we'll be able to convert a lot more inferred ounces to measured and indicated, and gives us a more robust Ana Paula project when we go to make that construction decision mid next year. So the primary reason for doing the financing is what it does for Ana Paula. It de-risks it and makes it easier to deliver a better project by the time we make the financing decision for it.
So, Charles, this has been a question that I've asked a few guests, not so much companies recently, regarding the general vibe in the resource sector, especially in precious metals and funds, big money institutions. I've been asking people, are they seeing inflows? What have other analysts been hearing in terms of the interest from bigger money supporters? What can you tell us about who took part in this financing? Is it some bigger institutions? Is it some bigger, I guess, shareholders that are seeing either profits in other companies or even in Heliostar, or funds that are seeing inflows? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, so our biggest shareholders continue to be very supportive. I think you'll see when the updates are done that our biggest shareholder was very supportive of the financing. We continue to attract quality funds. There's nothing that I would call fast money in this financing. Looking back a little bit, the perverse benefit of how difficult it's been to raise money over the last couple of years has led to a very quality shareholder base, in my opinion, for Heliostar. And they've continued to support us very well. I think it's interesting. Some of the funds that I did talk to on the back of this are still seeing net neutral inflow and outflow of their funds, whereas other groups are starting to see inflows. So it's definitely got a lot more activity, but it's by no means a hot market. We're still only just starting, I think, to see generalist interest, and you're just starting to see funds keep any profits they make in the sector as opposed to taking those profits out, which I think you've seen over the last 12 months. So I would consider from a cash flow perspective, you're kind of at the foothills of the interest of that. That's where I kind of read where we are at the moment.
Okay, very interesting. And I guess just to reiterate, one question that did come in is quite simply operationally. With this financing, the last time we talked, you'd outlined that Q4 financials really just encompassed operation from the early part of November through the end of the year. So not even a full quarter. Company was cash flow positive. People were just worried that maybe something had happened at the mine. Now that it was running a little bit longer in terms of the full quarter coming up to the full Q1, just to reiterate, this cash not being used for current operations in terms of, I guess, putting a band-aid on anything, correct?
No, very definitively can say that's not the case. And it's a fair concern when companies restart operations. Historically, you've needed, or there's always been, it's not uncommon for groups or companies to underestimate the operating cost or the capital cost to restart operations. We've benefited, and we've got to be honest, we've benefited from a tremendous increase in the gold price. We've also found additional production. So, if nothing goes wrong over the next 10 days, I think we can demonstrate another strong quarter from our operating assets. No, this is fundamentally about us moving with speed. It's worked very well for our shareholders to date. It's a focus of ours to bring Ana Paula on as quickly as we can, and this allows us to deliver a more robust project, whilst also in the background demonstrating a stronger balance sheet, which had been a concern for some potential investors. So I think we kill multiple birds with one stone. We strengthen the balance sheet, which gives us more defensive risk, or remove some of that risk from a defensive perspective. We can bring on production when we get the permit to expand San Augustine, which we expect to bring that production on in Q4. And we can drill, baby, drill Ana Paula, which is something our shareholders have always wanted us to do, and we've wanted to do when the time was right. And no warrant dollar financing at our 2-year high, I think, was the right time to do that.
Hey, fair enough. Raised at a higher price. And again, this is all shares. So it really is. You're not getting any warrant clippers in that, but the stock has been performing well. So look, again, if everyone wants kind of the operational update, listen to that last interview that Charles and I had. But Charles, before I get you out of here, just give us the broad update then, news-wise, operation-wise, sum it all up for us and what we can expect moving forward for shareholders.
Yeah, so to date this year, we're looking quite strong from a production perspective. We're clearly selling that gold at an incredible gold price. We will have more drill results shortly from La Colorada as we start to pivot towards some of the underground potential at La Colorada. Now we'll be able to get the rigs moving again at Ana Paula. We're working on the potential of the sulfides at San Augustine. We think there's kind of a bit of a free lottery ticket on those. And then we'll have the quarterly update from production. And finally, because it's a lot, we'll have the FS study for the expansion of La Colorada. So we've got a lot of catalysts to come. We've got a lot of sort of potential positive changes to the company that aren't priced in. And I think that's only going to be further confirmed with more Ana Paula drilling that we can now say that's going to come in Q2.
Okay. Charles, thank you very much for the update. Again, Charles Funk, President and CEO of Heliostar Metals. Click the link in the show notes, visit the Heliostar site, send me any questions you have for Charles for any of our future calls, as I will be following up with him to keep recapping the news that comes out operationally and exploration-wise. Charles, thank you very much for the update.
Thanks very much, Corey.